My mother passed away. Can you please come home so we can hold the funeral? But when I said this, my husband gave me a surprising reply. I can't because I'm on a company trip right now. What? I don't have anything to do with it, so I'm gonna enjoy the trip. I was absolutely stunned at my husband's unbelievable words. But 5 days later, something unexpected happened. I had no idea what was going to happen. Why didn't you answer my calls? Your mother passed away when I was at the funeral. We heard what I had to say, so he was so surprised he couldn't speak. My name is Chloe, and I'm a 53-year-old homemaker. My husband Mason and I have been married for 25 years. We have one son who has already graduated from college and is an adult. He is now independent. He comes home once in a while, but he seems to be very busy and we see him very rarely. So I spend my time with my husband alone, but I'm getting tired of living with my husband. Hey, dinner? Alright. My husband just bosses me around and makes me do whatever he says. It is natural that the wife does the housework, so I do whatever he asks me. I haven't been able to have a hot meal because he's so demanding when it comes to how I prepare meals. However, I cannot complain strongly because we are able to live thanks to my husband's salary, and even if I say something, it might immediately turn into a fight. My husband would throw a huge tantrum, and I would feel exhausted after each fight. My husband also disrespects my housework and often comes home late. If it was only overtime work, I would think that this is understandable, but he often goes out drinking without any notice and comes home late at night without eating dinner and just goes straight to bed. In the worst cases, he doesn't come home until morning, and when I call him, he would say he just spent the night at the office. Because of this, the food I had cooked for him goes to waste. When I don't know if my husband will eat dinner, I don't want to cook something elaborate. However, if I serve him something easy to make, he complains about it. If that is the case, he should come home every day and eat dinner. But when I tell him that, his face turns red and he gets angry, saying, "Who do you think you owe for your dinner?" My husband has always been like that and even pushed me to solely take care of our child. He never attended our son's class visits or school recitals. When he would show up, he would keep complaining about how he wants to be anywhere other than here. I remember how angry I was when I saw my husband open a beer can while I was at one of our son's sport games. After alcohol was banned at the sports meetings, it made him want to go even less. I began inviting my own parents so that my husband didn't have to come. That's how much my husband did not care about anyone but himself. In fact, my son also said he has a few memories of his father. They've only ever had a few conversations together, but about his career path. So it's almost as if I raised my son by myself. My relationship with my husband has cooled off. It was as if I had stayed married to him because of my son. So after my son left the nest, I felt suffocated being alone with just my husband. My husband is still the same. He still works overtime and tries to avoid seeing me as much as possible. Can we really call ourselves a married couple in such a state? Despite these doubts, I'm not sure that I'm ready for a divorce. I had become a full-time housewife upon marriage, and I had not worked since then. So I thought it would be difficult to make a living in my old age and on a part-time job. I was not confident that I could survive on my own after the divorce. Then one day my husband spoke to me. "I'm going to be transferred to a different office." Transferred where? Texas. That far? My husband is going to be transferred by himself to a branch office in the next state, and he's moving next week. "I need you to pack my bags." "What? I have to do it?" "Huh? I'm busy every day. You're always free at home." I was angry at my husband's demanding remarks, but I still felt better knowing that I would be free to spend some time alone in this house for a while. I packed my husband's belongings and made arrangements to send them to his new address. "See you later." Yeah. I was stunned when he left without saying goodbye or making eye contact with me, but the movement of the front door closed. I raised both hands in the air and felt so relieved. Now I don't have to stress about preparing dinner. I don't have to listen to his every tedious instruction. I can cook my favorite dishes at any time of the day just for me and enjoy them hot and fresh. I was impressed by how delicious, freshly prepared food tastes. I was also able to take a shower in my own time. When I lived with my husband, I was not allowed to take a leisurely shower, so it had been a long time since I had such a relaxing time. For the first week or two, I experienced the joy of living on my own as much as I could. Then, after that, I decided to look for a job for the future. Until now, I had been unable to work because of my husband's dinner and other commitments. But now that my son is independent and I don't have to think about my husband, I'm free to work. So I began to look for a job. Then I found an opening for a clerical position from 9 to 17 on the weekdays. I applied for it at the spur of the moment, and to my surprise, I was hired. They were willing to hire me because of my old qualifications and experience working as an office clerk. I was grateful that they hired me and worked very hard. I was inexperienced, and there were difficulties, but even so, I gradually regained my old work habits and became accustomed to my new job. It was very enjoyable to be out in the world for the first time in a long time and to communicate with various people, and I gave it a lot of energy to my new life. I had no idea my life would become so much more enjoyable now that my husband had moved out on his own. Even my son, who comes home sometimes, says to me, "Mom, you look happier." Stress has a negative effect on everything. I can see that when I look at you. You're right. I'm surprised at how much fun I'm having right now. Time passed quickly, and a year passed. My husband came home for Christmas, but rarely came home for the rest of the year. It seemed to be just fine to see him every once or twice a year, and I was able to have a normal conversation with him then. I thought this made me feel as if we were just distant relatives, but I was happy with that, so I didn't think anything was wrong with it. But then something happened that complicated the relationship between my husband and me. What? My mother? It happened all of a sudden. I received a phone call from the hospital. My mother was grocery shopping when she suddenly collapsed. I rushed to the hospital. My mother was asleep in her hospital bed. The doctor noticed my arrival and went into another room to talk to him. The doctor said, "Your mother had a myocardial infarction and was brought to the hospital." And that's when we found out. Then I said, "What, is it cancer?" To my horror, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She had only about 6 months to live. My mind went blank when my mother suddenly was diagnosed with cancer. But I was glad she was still alive. If the news from the hospital had been sad news about my mother, I would not have been able to endure it. Then I went back to my parents' house for a long time to take care of my mother and work. My father had already passed away a few years before, and my mother was living alone at home. "Chloe, I'm sorry to bother you." "What are you talking about, Mom? This is nothing." My mother was depressed because she thought she was burdening me. But for me, it was no bother at all. In fact, I'm glad I was able to spend a lot of time alone with my mother like this because it has been a long time. However, a few months after I started living with my mother, her condition deteriorated. She had to be hospitalized. "Grandma, are you okay?" "Oh, thank you for visiting me. I'm glad I get to see my grandson's face." My son would regularly follow me to the hospital to see my mother. My mother was happy to see her own grandson. By the way, my husband, of course, never came to see me or my family at all. I understand that he's working far away, so it couldn't be helped. I explained my mother's situation to him, but he would just say, "I see," or other short replies like that. I was frustrated by my husband. However, if my husband had not been working in a different state, I would not be able to take care of my mother for this long. So I decided to let it go for now. After that, my mother tried her best to stay alive, but she was unable to overcome her illness and passed away. My mother's death was very sad, but I was still very happy to witness her final days and say goodbye. And I had a lot of things to do. I had to make funeral arrangements and contacted our relatives. I called my husband first. Even though he was working in a different state, he would have to come to the funeral. If it was a bereavement, he would have been able to take off and come here without any problem. My husband answered the phone and I told him briefly, "My mom just passed away. We're going to hold a funeral, so can you come home right away?" But when I said this, my husband gave me a surprising response. "I can't because I'm on a company trip right now." "What? A trip?" "Members of the company and some friends are going with me." "Wait a minute, but I just told you my mother passed away." "Yeah, I heard." "Are you not coming to the funeral?" "Yeah, because I can't cancel my airline tickets." "Are you serious? Your wife's mother just died." "It's none of my business. I'm going to enjoy my trip. You and our son will be enough at the funeral, right?" I was absolutely shocked at his unbelievable words. "I can't believe it. You're such an asshole." "What? Shut up. You're my wife. You're not allowed to talk to me like that." "Are you really not coming back here?" "No, I'm not coming back. I'm on the verge of a fun trip. Don't make me feel bad. I'm hanging up right now." "Wait, hey." My husband said this and hung up the phone. After that, no matter how many times I called, he wouldn't answer. I can't believe him. How selfish he can be. My son was also stunned that my husband prioritized this trip instead of the funeral. We decided to not think about my husband and concentrate on the funeral. Many people attended the funeral, and people were surprised that my husband was not there. There were people so surprised that some people even asked me if I was divorced. My parents-in-law also apologized for how foolish their son was being. I heard that my husband has been ignoring their calls from his parents as well. I wonder if he wanted to enjoy the trip that much. I'm thoroughly disgusted by my husband's selfishness. But then, 5 days later, something unexpected happened. To my surprise, my mother-in-law was in a car accident and died. Just a few days ago, we just had my mother's funeral, and she was very kind to me and my son. I panicked when I heard the sad news. I couldn't believe that 2 of my relatives would be gone within a week. Mentally, it was a bit unbearable. I immediately called my husband, but he didn't answer the phone. Was he still on his trip? Even though my father-in-law and my brother-in-law contacted him, my husband never responded or answered the phone. We ended up holding my mother-in-law's funeral without my husband. It was not until after the funeral that I got in touch with my husband. "Hello, you're being so clingy." "Why wouldn't you pick up the phone?" "I told you I was on a trip." "Were you on a trip for a week?"
"Shut up. Who cares how long I decided to take a vacation?"
"Even so, I've been so out of touch with you. You could have at least picked up once."
What do you need?"
"Your mother passed away and we had a funeral."
"What?"
Upon hearing my story, my husband fell silent, perhaps too startled to speak. After a few seconds of silence, my husband asked me, his voice trembling, "Is it true that my mother is dead? Wasn't it your mother who passed away?" "A few days after my mother died of cancer, your mother died in a car accident." "Car accident?" "Not only me, but your father and brother have been trying to get in touch with you many times, so why didn't you return their calls?"
"Well, I didn't think something like this was going to happen."
"My relatives, including your father and your family, were furious. They all said you were going to sever ties between you."
"Oh, no."
"Anyway, come over here at once and let's talk about everything properly." My husband, seeing the gravity of the situation, complied. I met with my husband for the first time in a long time, and we talked about our future. I asked my son to join us. I got right down to business. "I'm going to get straight to the point. I want you to divorce me."
"Divorce?"
My husband was surprised to hear that I was divorcing him.
"Oh, come on. That's a bit much, don't you think?"
"What? Are you seriously saying that? Do you have any idea how much I've endured your harassment until now? It's too embarrassing that you didn't even thank me for all the housework I did. Didn't even come to visit my mother, didn't attend her funeral, went on vacation, and on top of that, didn't attend your own mother's funeral and went out on playing around. I can't stay married to such a horrible person. I want a divorce. I said and thrust the divorce papers at him. My husband flinched under my momentum, but he responded to me. I didn't know about my mom, so it couldn't be helped. Besides, can you live on your own after you leave me? Don't get carried away. You had to support me. My husband's face turned red, and he raised his voice, but I was no longer upset. You really don't care about me, do you? I told you, I started working right after you moved out on your own. Did you forget that I had to fill out paperwork for that? My husband finally seemed to remember when I said that. Well, then, I want the amount you worked for as part of your share of the property. Don't think you can get a free divorce like this. He was a rotten man, no matter how far he went. Well, it can't be helped because I still want to get rid of you. When I said this, my sons opened his mouth. Well, then Dad, you owe Mom alimony. Alimony? I was confused. My husband stared at my son. Hey, what are you talking about? Why do I owe alimony? When my husband said this, my son took something out of his bag and spread it on the table. These are pictures that are proof you were cheating on Mom. You were bringing women into your apartment that lived with you, and a while you were working out of state. My husband looked at the pictures and was absolutely mortified. I had no idea that my husband was having an affair, so I was equally surprised. How do you have these? A classmate of mine from college works at the same company as you. When he went to your branch office on a business trip, he saw you getting friendly with young female employees at the branch office. He asked someone at the branch office about it, and they told me that there was a rumor going around that they were having an affair. So I hired a professional to get some solid evidence. I got the evidence right away, so it was cheap. My son's explanation made my husband's face turn blue at once. I didn't know that was the case. You've been traveling with your lover, haven't you? My husband, in a cold sweat, and was saying, No, that's not. He was becoming more and more panicked. I'm going to charge you and your affair partner alimony. Oh, no. My husband was paralyzed in fear. He didn't think I would have found about the affair. I was so glad my son was there because I could not have found that out on my own. After that, I officially divorced my husband and demanded alimony from him and his lover. I sent a content-certified letter to the company. Apparently, the woman whom he had had an affair with is now being shunned by people at work, who now know that the rumors were true. Furthermore, my husband's inability to attend his wife's mother's funeral and his own mother's due to the affair became known throughout the workplace, and he was no longer treated as a human being. Unable to bear such cold stares, my husband resigned from the company. However, his own family despises him for the same reason and has cut him off, so he has no one to turn to. He's now spending his days paying alimony while working as a freelancer in his hometown. The room we originally lived in was a rental, but my ex-husband's salary is not enough to pay the rent, so he canceled the lease and now is living in a cheap apartment. My ex-husband has been sending me emails laminating the situation, asking to get back together with him, but I ignore all of them and just put them in my junk mail. I'm currently doing well at work and living comfortably in a reasonably priced apartment, so there's nothing wrong with that. Any situation is heaven compared to when I was living with my ex-husband. I will continue to do the best at my job and live happily ever after in a life that fits my lifestyle. Thank you for watching.
My son told me that he's cutting ties with our family because his fiancé told him to.
I will have him cut ties with you. I won't let you become my lawyer husband's parasite. My son's fiancée said this at the wedding ceremony, and my son, who is at her beck and call, agreed with her.
Sorry, Mom. I will be cutting ties with you.
I was disgusted at my son's inability to make his own decisions, but I made sure to give him an ultimatum. Are you sure about this? I don't care if you regret this later. I'm a 62-year-old housewife. My husband and I had been married for 35 years. We were colleagues at the same company. He was more senior to me than I was to him, but we started working on a project together, and we grew closer. We continued our relationship and got married. After marriage, I resigned from my job and became a stay-at-home mom. From then on, I concentrated on housework and supported my husband, who worked very hard. My husband and I had a hard time having children after we got married, but just when we were about to give up, I got pregnant. That's how our son, Thomas, was born. My husband and I were surprised at the unexpected timing of the birth of our child, but most of all, we were very happy because it was a surprise. My parents were also very happy about the birth of their grandson. My son has grown up to be a very good boy without any rebelliousness. I have the impression that he is a little timid, but his kind-heartedness has not changed, and he has many friends as an adult. Thanks to the cram school he started attending in junior high school, his grades continued to improve, and he went on to a higher education in high school. In his second year of high school, he told us about his dream.
I want to be a lawyer in the future, so I'm thinking of going to a good law school and then graduate school. It's going to cost me a lot of money, and it's going to be tough for you guys, but...
When my son said all that, I told him, "Don't worry about that and pursue your dreams." I said to him, "My son seems to be ignited by my comment and started studying hard. Thanks to his diligent study from his second year of high school, my son was accepted into the law department of a difficult university. Congratulations, Thomas."
You're a man of your word. That's a big achievement. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
We were celebrating our son's college entrance, and my husband and I felt we had to make sure we were earning enough money to pay for his tuition. When our son decided to become a lawyer, I started working part-time at a supermarket. My husband worked overtime to make ends meet, and we saved up money for our son. When I heard that my son had been accepted to law school, I remember feeling as if all our hard work had paid off. Our son continued to study hard even after he entered university, and he made it all the way to graduate school. I respected my son when I saw him accomplish what he set his mind to, one thing at a time. I strongly hoped that his dream of becoming a lawyer would come true. After that, my son took the bar exam several times and passed it at the age of 28. He then entered a legal apprenticeship and became a lawyer at the age of 29. My husband and I were very happy and congratulated him on becoming a lawyer. Of course, it was great that he became a lawyer, but it was also great that he was able to make his dream come true. He really is my son, and he started working as a lawyer in a law firm. Until now, he had been staying up living at home, so he didn't need to worry about housework. But now that his exams are over, and he has become a lawyer, he had started to live on his own. I was worried about whether he was eating enough nutritious food every day, because he was not used to living alone, and he had just started working. But apparently, he's doing well. I can remember the time when my son was just born, and when he was a small child as if it was yesterday. So I'm deeply moved by the fact that he has become an adult, and at the same time, I feel how quickly time flies. My son comes home regularly during Thanksgiving and New Year's holidays to tell me that his work is going well. Then, a little over a year after my son started working as a lawyer, he came back home and gave me a surprising report.
I'm going to get married.
What? Married? Neither my husband nor I had expected this news, so we were surprised to the point of almost collapsing.
Oh, come on, guys. You're overreacting.
It's too sudden and out of the blue to not be surprised.
Well, I'm 30 years old now. I should be married by now.
You're right.
Well, it was definitely a surprise. But congratulations, Thomas. Thank you. I'm bringing my fiancée next time.
Okay, I will look forward to meeting her. I didn't expect my son to get married so soon. I had assumed that he would work hard as a lawyer for a while and then get married. My husband seems to think the same thing, and after our son came home, he muttered to himself many times,
Thomas is getting married.
like he couldn't believe it. I was deeply moved again by the rapidly changing state of our family. Then, about 2 weeks later, my son arrived with his fiancée. Nice to meet you. My name is Patricia. Patricia was a beautiful woman, and my husband and I were even more surprised that our son would marry such a beautiful woman. I showed her into the living room, and over tea and sweets, I asked her how they had met.
We first met when we were college students in the same club. Patricia was the most beautiful woman at our school and very popular with the boys.
She's very beautiful, isn't she? Thank you. How kind of you to say that. How long have you two been dating? If they have known each other since college, they may have been dating each other for quite a while. But if after hearing their answer, it turned out that was not the case.
I started seeing her about 6 months ago. We hadn't seen each other since graduation. But then she contacted me out of the blue, and we started dating.
I see. Why did she contact him all of a sudden? I wondered when I heard the story. And I'm sorry to say this, but how could someone who was the most beautiful person in her college circle suddenly contact a timid type of man like my son for no reason, start dating him, and end up marrying him within 6 months? Somehow, I'm getting the feeling that Patricia isn't telling us something. I was observing them as I listened to Patricia and my son talk. Patricia had told me that they had started dating and that she wanted to get married. More and more suspicious. I suspect she contacted my son because he had become a lawyer and she wanted to get him to marry her. I don't think she was attracted by my son himself, but by his money. Then the conversation turned to us. Tim, what do you do for work?
I used to be an office worker, but I retired just last month.
What? Patricia's expression clouded when my husband mentioned that he was retired. Wait a minute. So you are saying you are unemployed now? You haven't been working anywhere since you retired?
Yeah, well, I'm not working right now.
My husband flinched from the way Patricia looked at him. Are you a full-time worker, Emily? No, I work part-time at the supermarket. Huh? A part-time job at a supermarket? Patricia's reaction surprised me. Is there a problem? When I asked her that, Patricia's attitude, which had been polite until a moment ago, changed drastically. There is a huge problem. It's embarrassing that my husband's parents are lowly people like this. How am I supposed to introduce you both at the wedding? It's too embarrassing that the groom's parents are unemployed and work part-time at the supermarket. How could you? I can't help but become saddened at her remark.
Patricia, you can't talk like that.
My son must have thought she went too far because he defended us. But Patricia's outburst didn't stop. Please don't come to our wedding. It's too embarrassing to have such people in our family. But I can't attend my own son's wedding? He's not your real son anymore. I will have him cut ties with you. Huh? What are you saying? Because if you continue to have a relationship with him, you will definitely ask for money. I won't do that. I don't trust you. I won't let you become my lawyer husband's parasite. My son's fiancé started making such comments.
Patricia, I don't think they would ask for money.
My son said this to Patricia in a panic, but Patricia was unmoved. Whose side are you on, Thomas? Your mother's or mine? I think that usually you take care of your married wife first, don't you?
Well, that's...
My son looks down for a moment, and my son, who was at her beck and call, agreed with her.
I'm sorry, Mom. I'm going to have to cut ties with you. Thomas, are you serious? My marriage to Patricia is more important to me. I don't want to do anything she wouldn't want me to do.
No way. I was discussing my son's inability to make his own decisions, but I made sure to give him an ultimatum. Are you sure about this? I don't care if you regret this later. You're persistent. Thomas said so, so give up. You can go on living your old age like the poor people you are. Patricia says this with a triumphant look on her face. My son doesn't even say anything to Patricia anymore. He's just following her orders like a dog. I see. I understand then. Let's cut ties. With that, I ended this conversation. When we were done talking, Patricia took my son and left the house right away.
I can't believe Thomas would fall for a woman like that.
My husband and I were very shocked. Thomas had worked so hard to become a lawyer, but we had created a safe environment for him to study, and we had paid for his college tuition. Our son chose to skip all that and be with that woman. And my son and Patricia have done even more terrible things to me. They have sent invitations to my relatives with circles already printed on the traces. This is completely malicious. My brother contacted away.
My wedding invitation is already circled as absent. What does this mean?
I told him everything and asked him for a favor. After he finished listening to me, he said, "Okay," and agreed to help me. A few months later, my son's wedding day arrived. I went with my brother to the place where my son's wedding was to take place, uninvited. There were already many people in attendance, and they were talking happily around my son and Patricia. But as my brother and I approached, my son and Patricia stared at us with grim expressions on their faces. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Patricia says to me, her voice rising.
Mom, I told you I cut ties with you.
My son says that proudly in the presence of people around us. People around me look at us quizzically when they hear this. "Emily, we don't want you to come here without our permission. We told you not to come here. You really are a helpless person, aren't you?" Patricia made it sound as if I had done something wrong. People around us start to murmur. But it's not because of me. It's because of my brother is here. My son and Patricia, obvious to the fact that he was there, cursed us out.
I didn't think you were so clueless, Mom. Are you trying to ruin our wedding?
You really are a lousy mother if you can't put your son first. And who is that guy next to her? Oh, maybe it's your lover or something. How dare you bring your lover instead of bringing your husband?
Mom, that's not very nice. I feel bad for Dad.
My son and his wife, they don't know what they are talking about. In just a few months, my son has become more like Patricia in his thoughts, words and deeds. I explained with a sigh. Thomas, have you forgotten? This is my brother.
What? My uncle? What is he doing here?
Oh, I think I might have figured it out. You were trying to appeal to our conscience by bringing an old man here and asking us to give him a break. But that won't work on us. The ceremony is about to start, so why don't you just leave? Patricia made a shooing motion. Then, the lawyers around my son stopped her.
Hey, you! Stop it!
Patricia got a little grumpy as the lawyers around her stopped her. Why are you stopping me? I was just trying to get rid of someone who was interrupting my wedding, Patricia said, and my son agreed.
Yes, that's right. It's not very smart to take an old man and try to appeal to our feelings. In a situation like this, you have to be very clear. This wedding is no place for poor people like you.
Thomas, that's my husband? When my son made that comment, the lawyers around him turned pale and scolded him.
Oh, come on, Thomas. Do you know who you are talking to? This man is a very big name in the legal profession. What? If you offended him, you will never make it in a legal profession.
My son is aghast at being told that.
No, but he's just my uncle.
Thomas, I didn't tell you, but my brother is a lawyer. My son's face goes pale. My brother stared at my son and opened his mouth.
Thomas, I never told you that I was a lawyer, so as not to put pressure on you to become one. And even after you became a lawyer, it would have been difficult for you to do so if you knew that you were my nephew. So I decided to keep it quiet for a while. But on the other hand, I'm glad I found out who you really are. I never thought you'd call me poor or old. Oh, no,
Patricia interrupted him without understanding what was going on. Thomas, why aren't you fighting back? You are younger than him, so it's not a problem. What's the big deal about this old lawyer? Oh, she's done it, I thought to myself. The lawyers around me had their faces turning white beyond recognition.
Oh, I understand now. Thomas, I think you've got a great bride. I take it that means you and your wife are going to insult me. I will have to speak to the head of the law firm you're with about this. What?
My son finally understands the situation he is in.
Patricia, apologize quickly. Uncle, I'm so sorry.
My son gets down on his knees, saying that.
Patricia, come on.
Why? Why should I have to apologize?
Stop it. I don't want to see you get down on your knees. Just know that you have earned my wrath.
With that, my brother turned his cold gaze on Patricia. Then, as if to deepen the blow, I told Patricia something. Patricia, I have been suspicious of you for some time now, and I have asked a detective agency to investigate. What? You are having an affair, aren't you? I showed them the pictures of the affair. They showed her walking into a hotel room with a man who was not my son. How did you? Patricia looked at the picture and was absolutely mortified, while my son's eye widened in astonishment.
Hey, Patricia, what the hell is going on?
I don't know. This woman is trying to set me up.
Oh, now you insult my sister too. No, it's too late for that now. Your marriage is already in ruins.
With that, my brother turned on his heel. The lawyers around my son, Patricia, began to creep out of the hall. My son argued with Patricia, and the wedding was called off. My son asked to break off the engagement. Patricia asked for alimony for breaking off the engagement, but my son also asked for alimony for cheating on him. And now they're in a quagmire, with neither side backing down. And my son has been kicked out of the law firm he was in, because he has offended my brother. since my brother's name has influence with other law firms. There's no law firm that will hire my son, and he's currently out of work, as if he were unemployed. Patricia, on the other hand, has lost all credibility with her colleagues and friends because of the incident at the wedding, and she's now working to pay the alimony. My husband and I would be lying if we said we weren't worried about our son, but after what happened, we have decided to cut ties with him. Even though he is a weak man and has no opinion of his own, he insulted us so much that I cannot forgive him. From now on, my husband and I will cherish our time together as a couple and live in peace and tranquility in our old age.
My husband is verbally abusive and threatened me for divorce, so I couldn't take it anymore as a result.
I've had enough. I will go back to my parents' house. I became emotional, and this was the first time I argued against my husband, Phil. And as expected, Phil got bright red and was very angry.
Then don't ever come back here. Make sure to sign the divorce papers before you leave.
Saying this, Phil pushed the divorce papers into my face. I just couldn't take it anymore. I got my pen, and as I began to sign the papers, Phil widened his eyes, looking confused. Well then, thank you for everything you've done. But well, it's more like I was the one who did everything. My name is Christy. I am 30 years old and I am a full-time housewife. My husband Phil and I just got married, and I'm already beginning to regret this marriage. This is because my husband completely changed the moment we got married. He used to be so kind and gentle to me, but the moment we got married, he turned into a demon. He used to be such a kind person, but how and why did he turn into a demon like this? Even though I wondered, I couldn't really come up with the reasons. My husband and I originally met through my dad.
Christy, his name is Phil, and he is a very talented employee in my company. Nice to meet you. My name is Phil.
Phil was a company employee working for the company which was owned by my dad. He was 2 years older than me, seemed to have a good attitude towards work, making good results, and for this my dad trusted him. I was working at a company, which was a business partner for my dad's company, and I was introduced to him when I went to dad's company for a business meeting.
Christy, you aren't married yet, and I heard that you're not dating anyone currently, so I thought, why not Phil?
What? Wait a minute, Dad. What are you saying all of a sudden? I was surprised when Dad suddenly suggested Phil as my fiancé.
I mean, you can't stay unmarried like this. And I'm not saying that you two should get married. I just wanted him to meet my daughter because he is brilliant and excellent. You should go to dinner once with him and talk with him.
Won't it be a bother for you, Phil? I mean, my dad suddenly made such a reckless request to you.
No, I don't think it's reckless at all. In fact, I feel very honored. If you don't mind, I would like to have dinner with you once.
Phil approached me in such a positive way that I got a little excited. And we actually went out to dinner, and he was very kind and also interesting to talk to. But he was also quite a gentleman, without being very shallow about anything. To be honest, I was attracted to him right away. When Dad asked me how it was like with Phil, I told him he was fun and nice, and I was too embarrassed to say that I liked him a lot. But I kept in touch with him without telling my dad about it, and we started seeing each other after that. And after a few more dates, we decided to officially go out. Phil looked at me seriously and said that he wanted me to go out with him with marriage in mind. I said yes to his confession, and then decided to inform this to Dad. My dad said,
Oh, you decided to go out with him? Good, good, good.
And he was certainly overjoyed. And from then on, Phil and I continued to date. He always made me great date plans and treated me like a princess. I was puzzled because I had never had a man treat me so kind like him before, and I was just very happy. I was beginning to think that I wanted to marry such a wonderful man like Phil. About a year after we started to go out, Phil proposed to me. The place where Phil proposed to me was at a very beautiful table with a night view at a top-class restaurant. I waited for his words with anticipation and excitement, hoping that he might propose to me. Then, Phil pulled out a ring box from his pocket, pulled out a ring from it, and finally proposed to me.
Christy, please marry me. I will make you happy for the rest of your life.
Yes, I will marry you, Phil. I felt like I was in heaven. I was so happy that he proposed to me, that I could have just died like this. And when I told my dad about the marriage, he was very happy.
Oh, Christy, honey, I'm so happy for you. I'm sure that your mother in heaven is definitely happy too.
You're right, Dad. I'll make sure I can deliver a wonderful wedding to Mom. Mom died of illness 10 years ago, and since then, Dad and I have lived together, just the two of us. I wish Mom could have seen me as a bride, but I am sure she will be smiling at me in heaven. Afterwards, Phil and I had met with his family, and we held a wonderful wedding, and it all went well with no issues. My friends and colleagues congratulated me a lot, and I once again experienced the peak of happiness at the wedding. My dad, being the president of the company, tried very hard not to shed tears in front of his subordinates, but I could tell that he was very moved and emotional. Dad must have been really happy because he kept on congratulating me. We finished the wedding in a very happy state, and I was just imagining the joyous married life that was to come. And then finally, my newlywed life with my husband began. My husband had asked me to quit my job after we got married, so I took the opportunity to quit the company I had been working for and became a full-time housewife. I loved my job, but my life with my husband was still more important, which is why I quit my job without hesitation and became a housewife. I was determined to do my best in the house chores for my husband, who worked very hard for me. But my hopes were shattered in an instant. It was 1 month after my husband and I got married.
Hey, can't you cook anything better?
Huh? My husband suddenly says something like that to me so bluntly that I froze.
Hey, are you even listening to me properly?
Oh, yeah.
Then hurry up and answer me. You have no common sense at all, huh?
What?
Anyways, answer me. I'm asking if you can cook anything better or not.
Is there something that you didn't like which I cooked?
It's everything. Everything you cook is just too plain. Can't you cook something that's more flavorful?
I'm sorry, honey. I was trying to make something healthy and well-balanced, though.
I want to eat something that has meat and fried food. Since what you cooked was mainly vegetables and soup, you better make something good from tomorrow, okay?
Okay. I was surprised at the sudden change in my husband's attitude. And it was not only about cooking, but also about other things.
Why is the bathtub not hot enough? Hey, why aren't my clothes dry whenever I want to wear them, huh? You're such a useless housewife, huh?
My husband's verbal abuse was getting extremely harsh, and I was becoming more and more afraid of him. I wondered where the kind and gentle man he used to be had gone to. And the most scary thing about my husband is that he always acts like he's a good person on the outside. Whenever Phil meets my dad, He acts as a kind, sincere husband and smiling as the nice young man he used to be. Sometimes he brings his coworkers home with him and he acts the same way, as if he was a very good husband to me. But when it is just the two of us, he becomes very scary, and he is not satisfied unless everything is done just the way he wants it. My dream of a happy, wonderful marriage with him was shattered in an instant, and I was in complete despair. After that, my husband's excessive and hostile attitude towards me continued. I even considered divorcing him. But my husband, perhaps seeing through what I was thinking, told me,
If you are thinking about divorce, don't you dare do it. How bad would it be for the CEO's daughter to get divorced after only a month or two? That's going to be bad for your father's reputation, and it's going to be bad for the company's reputation. You're going to make your own father suffer if you divorce me.
Oh, no. At that time, I was not thinking straight and being logical at all. So I strongly felt that I didn't want to bother or worry my dad with what I had to deal with my husband. But do I have no choice but to endure what my husband says to me every single day? Thinking like that made me even more depressed.
Hey, hurry up and pour me some beer. There's nothing in my glass, you know.
I'm sorry.
My God, you're really useless. I mean, you were raised up by your father with no mother at all, so you weren't taught proper values, right?
Don't say it like that.
Huh? Do you have something to say?
Ah! My husband threw the glass of beer at me just as I screamed. Fortunately, the glass did not hit my face or my body, but the beer splashed onto my face, and the glass broke when it hit the wall.
You should clean up these broken glasses, since this all happened because of you. I won't forgive you if you didn't clean it properly and hurt my feet when I walk around here.
So then I wiped my face with a towel and cleaned the broken glasses carefully so as not to hurt myself. While I was cleaning up carefully, my husband was humming and taking a bath. But I'm the one who wants to take a bath right now. Little by little, my anger towards my husband began to rise. He must think that I can't go through with a divorce. He better not take me lightly. I am not going to let him get away with what he had done to me. Up until now, I was being weak towards Phil. But I am a woman who does things when she has to. I won't let him talk me down. At that moment, I decided that I was ready to fight my husband. I don't care what happens. Whatever happens, happens. My dad would understand. A few days later, my husband again got angry at me with no good reason. And this was triggered by a certain incident. Hey, a friend of mine who studied abroad is coming back this weekend, and we're going to celebrate her return with a party. I'm thinking of going, but is that okay? When I asked my husband about it, as expected, he did not allow it.
Of course not. You have to cook dinner for me, you know.
Oh, for dinner, I was thinking I could already have it made for you. The moment I said that, my husband slammed the table.
You've got to be kidding. You want me to eat a pre-cooked meal? You know that I work my butt off to provide everything for you, right? So you better make freshly made meal every day and serve it to me. Can't you even understand that, you good-for-nothing woman?
My husband still yells at me and shouting terrible words at me. But I wasn't going to let him talk to me like that anymore. I've had enough. I will go back to my parents' house. I became emotional, and this was the first time I argued against my husband, Phil. And as expected, Phil got bright red and was very angry.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. I won't accept that.
My husband was extremely angry, but I couldn't lose to him either. I don't care whether you approve or not. I just can't stay with you who treats me like your slave.
Then don't ever come back here. Make sure to sign the divorce papers before you leave.
Saying this, Phil pushed the divorce papers into my face. I just couldn't take it anymore. Fine then.
What?
I got my pen and as I began to sign the papers, Phil widened his eyes, looking confused.
Come on. You can't be serious, right?
Of course I'm serious. I can't keep on doing this with you anymore. When Phil realized that I was serious, he suddenly started to panic.
Hey, wait a minute. Where are you going?
So I told you, I'm going back to my parents' house. As soon as I finished signing the divorce papers, I put them in my bag and started packing my belongings. My husband watched in confusion. Well then, thank you for everything you've done. But, well, it's more like I was the one who did everything, I said sarcastically, and left the house to go back to my parents' house.
Oh? Christy, honey, what's wrong? I can't believe you suddenly came back home with a big luggage.
My dad was surprised to see my luggage. I, on the other hand, had tears flowing down my cheek when I saw my dad.
Christy?
Before I knew it, I was hugging Dad.
What's wrong? What in the world happened, honey? In any case, just come into the house. I'll make you some tea.
Dad said that, and we both went into the living room. And after drinking the tea which calmed me down, I told him everything. He listened quietly and then quietly opened his mouth.
Honey, I'm sorry for giving you a hard time. I'm really sorry.
Oh no, it's not your fault, Dad.
No, first of all, it was me who introduced Phil to you. And besides, it's true that he was using me as a leverage for you to obey him, Christy. And you put up with it because you were worried about me and the company. So I'm responsible for that.
My father said that as he apologized. Then he looked up at me and said with a serious look on his face,
As for Phil, I will punish him thoroughly.
I looked at Dad and nodded strongly. The next day, I received so many phone calls from my husband. I was mentally exhausted and was resting at my parents' house, but my husband was calling me incessantly, so I had no choice but to answer the phone.
Finally, you picked up. Hey, what the hell did you say to your dad? Did you know that your dad fired me right away?
What do you mean, what? Of course. I told him everything you've done to me. The many heartless outbursts, the way you used my dad and his company to threaten me, and even the way you made fun of the fact that I was brought up with a single parent and made fun of me and my family. Do you think that a daughter who heard all of this from his own daughter wouldn't be angry? Well, a man who would tell his wife something like that would never get any credibility in the company anyways.
You've got to be kidding me. You have no proof that I said anything that bad to you.
Don't you dare look down on me like that. I've been keeping a diary and other records of what you've done and said to me, and I've even recorded our conversations. I already have plenty of evidence of your daily verbal abuse to me.
No way.
Oh, and I heard that there was another reason for you being fired. My dad contacted everyone who had ever left the company, and they all said they were changing jobs or leaving for personal reasons. But when he asked them the exact reason, they all told him the real reason. They all were saying that they had all been harassed by you and that you had even taken credit for their work. When my dad told them that he was going to fire you and rehire them all back, they were happy to cooperate.
What?
You act like a good person in public that none of your superiors could see your true nature. You even deceived my father, so I'll give you credit for that. But don't think that you can keep on doing bad things forever. You will never be able to move on to another company in your line of work. And I'm going to charge you compensation for the emotional distress and all the harassment you've done to me.
Compensation?
I even have a doctor's note. You'll be notified through my lawyer, so you'll have to pay for it. The only place you're going is to hell.
Oh no.
My ex-husband's voice sounded so weak when I argued back everything I had on my mind. I teamed up with Dad and succeeded in getting Phil being punished. Afterwards, my ex-husband had to pay me the compensation fee. He's now working part-time and more than half of his salary pays off for the compensation fee. And Phil has been cut off from his parents because of this incident, and now he is living a lonely, sad life with no one to rely on. But he deserves what he got, and it's a really good feeling. Meanwhile, I went back to my parents' house and started living with my dad again. Then, Dad suggested that if I was willing, I would work with him on the premise that I would take over as the next CEO, so I decided to join his company. Currently, I am learning my job while working hard every day to take over the position of the CEO. From now on, I will live with my dad happily, and I hope to make the company a success with my dad. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in our next video.
10 years ago, my husband lived with my sis. We're moving back to parents' house. I told him the truth.
It's been 10 years. However, Tony called me out of the blue, and I couldn't help but wonder what he wanted from me. To my surprise, he said something shocking.
I'm going back to your home with my wife, so you need to leave. That place belongs to us.
I couldn't believe what I heard. I decided to set the record straight for Tony, who was still living in a fantasy world. Our family home will never be in your hands. My name is Andrea Jones, and I'm a 34-year-old office worker. Although I'm currently single, I was actually married once to a guy named Tony, who, to be honest, was quite unbearable to even think about. We met at work when I was 23, and he was 22 as a new employee. As his mentor, I told him the ropes, and we ended up working together on several projects. Tony was an energetic and lively new hire with a great sense of humor, and we had a lot of fun working together. One day, at the company drinking party, he approached me and said,
Andrea, would you like to go on a date with me? I've been quite interested in you.
I was taken aback, but I agreed, and we began dating. We had a great time together during our relationship. He would take me to various fun places for dates, not just the usual spots, but also some hidden gems. We had great conversations, and he always made me laugh. I found myself increasingly drawn to him. We continued dating without any problems, but about 6 months into our relationship, I found out I was pregnant.
You're pregnant?
Yeah, I'm 9 weeks pregnant.
I'm so happy to become a father.
But we're not even married yet.
Of course, we'll get married. Now that we have a child, let's start a happy family together.
Hearing him say that, I felt relieved and happy. And so, we decided to get married. When we told our parents, they were surprised that we became pregnant before getting married, but were reassured by the fact that we worked at the same company. We went to his parents first to ask for their blessing, but instead, they apologized and said,
We are sorry that our son has caused you trouble.
Then his mother said, Please take care of him, Andrea.
Mom, normally it's the husband who is responsible for taking care of his wife. No, you are easy to get carried away, so Andrea needs to hold the reins on you. Hey, haha.
Tony and his parents seemed to get along well, and I felt happy about that. If he grew up in such a family, I was sure he would care for our child and we can become a happy family. I imagined our future with hope. Then came the day to visit my parents and ask for their blessing.
Nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. I'm Tony, and I want to marry your daughter. I apologize for changing the order of things, but I promise to take responsibility and build a happy family.
He bowed and apologized. My parents weren't really angry, but they seemed to trust him more because of his courteous introduction. At that moment, I'm home! Welcome back, Christina. We have a guest? Yes, remember? I told you that Andrea's fiancé visiting today. Oh, was that today? Come over here and introduce yourself. All right. My sister Christina came along, chatting happily with my mother. Nice to meet you. I'm Andrea's sister,
Christina?
Oh, Tony? Wait, you two know each other? We were in the same club at the same university. Oh, really? I was surprised by her statement and looked at Tony, and he nodded in agreement. My sister was 21 at the time and a senior in college, and she and Tony were in the same club, with Tony being her senior by 1 year. It's a small world, I said, surprised, just like the two of them.
Whoa, I can't believe you're Andrea's sister.
I was also surprised that you're my sister's fiancé, Tony. Our last name in Jones, a very common name, so I guess it's hard to tell we are sisters.
If Christina already knows Tony, then it's like he's already family,
my father said, and my mother smiled kindly. Thus, the marriage greetings ended in a friendly atmosphere. The dinner party for both families' greetings was also enjoyable, and we got married and became husband and wife. I went on maternity leave as I was pregnant and focused on household chores while enjoying our newlywed life. Every day, I made lunch boxes for my husband, cleaned the house, cooked dinner, and waited for him to come home. I love my job, so I planned to return to work after my maternity leave, but I also thought it would be nice to experience being a housewife like this. It is probably the most peaceful and relaxed time to enjoy our newlywed life, since it will become quite hectic once the baby arrives. Tony seems to be busy with work, and some days he came home late, but we were happy to spend our weekends together. Soon after, I went into labor and gave birth to our beautiful baby girl. Tony was very happy to meet his daughter.
She's so cute. She's like an angel,
he said, holding our daughter. I thought he would be a great dad as I smiled at him. After that, I was discharged from the hospital and returned home to focus on child rearing while on maternity leave. I felt so happy just by spending time with my adorable daughter every day. Of course, there are difficult times like the baby crying at night, but she was so cute that nothing bothered me, except for one thing. It was that my husband's return home was getting later and later every day. Even before, he often came home after 10 p.m. when work was busy, but recently, he had started coming home after midnight or around 2 a.m. As these days increased, I got a little frustrated. After all, it's tough with a newborn baby, and just having my husband at home makes me feel at ease. One day, I expressed my dissatisfaction to my husband. Hey, are you really that busy with work? I've only been working for about 2 years, but even during the busy season, I wasn't that busy. My husband looked troubled.
Well, I have to work this much or I won't finish my work. Besides, I have to work hard and earn money for us now, right?
That's true, but I couldn't say anything more when he said that. And on weekends, he seems tired and just slept in his room all day, only coming to the living room during meal times. He didn't play with our daughter much, and he was different from the husband I had envisioned. But if work was busy, there was nothing I could do but accept it. But in the midst of all this, I found out a shocking fact from a colleague at work who contacted me. The call came during the day. Hey, isn't this Tony? My colleague was apparently off that day, and she came to town to do some shopping. She saw my husband dressed in a suit, walking with a woman she didn't know, and she took a picture and sent it to me. What? Are you kidding me? I was so shocked when I saw the person in the photo that my head went completely blank. The woman next to my husband was my sister Christina. The two of them were holding hands affectionately, and it didn't look like they were just relatives. Furthermore, when my colleagues secretly followed them, it seems that the two of them boldly entered the hotel in broad daylight. I felt as if my head had been hit with a blunt object when I heard about it. After that, I decided to hire a private investigator to confirm whether they were really having an affair. I still had a part of me that wanted to believe in my husband. However, it turned out that my husband was indeed having an affair with my sister, and several evidence photos were sent to me from the investigator. When I asked my colleague, she said that my husband hadn't been working overtime for the past few years and always left work on time. In other words, he had been lying to me and meeting with my sister all along. With the evidence in hand, I felt an indescribable anger toward my husband and sister. I immediately confronted my husband, showing him the evidence photos and asking him what he thought he was doing by having an affair with my sister. He couldn't deny it and eventually confessed.
Christina was the one who came on to me. At first, we were meeting with a few friends from the university club, but then we started meeting alone. Before we knew it, we were meeting more than half of the week.
That's enough. Do you think you can get away with doing something like this? I'm going to divorce you and make you pay alimony.
I guess that's inevitable.
Of course. I will make Christina pay too.
Huh?
He was very surprised when I said that.
She's still a student and will graduate soon. It's too cruel to demand alimony from your own sister.
I think the one who deserves the criticism from society is my sister, who slept with her sister's husband. If you don't want to burden Christina, then you should pay for both of you. Considering the going rate, it would be around $70,000 for two people.
$70,000? That's outrageous.
You did something that warrants that kind of payment. You're going to take responsibility for your actions. When I said that, he turned pale.
Anyway, let's talk about this thoroughly next time.
He said that, and we agreed to have a discussion with both families present. He said he would stay in a business hotel for a while, so I was left to live with my daughter and think about our future. And so, we decided to have a discussion about it at my parents' house over the weekend. But my husband and sister didn't show up. This surprised not only me, but also our parents and my in-laws.
We are truly sorry about this. It's bad enough that he's causing you trouble, but not showing up to this meeting is beyond our comprehension.
They said, apologizing profusely.
Well, our daughter's not here either, so we are both at fault.
They also expressed their concern for me, who was the main victim in this situation.
If the two of them continue to be unresponsive, we'll pay the compensation for you, and we'll also cover the child support payments.
My in-laws apologized deeply once again, and my parents paid me the compensation that my sister was supposed to pay. I felt uneasy about receiving money from my parents, but they assured me that they would find my sister and make her pay, so I didn't have to worry. Honestly, as a single mother who has to raise my daughter, I could use all the money I could get, so I was grateful. In the end, we couldn't reach either Tony or Christina. I also went to Tony's workplace, but he had apparently submitted his resignation letter and quit. Christina had just graduated from college and planned to become a part-time worker as she hadn't found a real job yet. I knew she was mobile, but I never thought my husband would abandon everything and elope with her. After that, I lost all contact with them. Later, a pre-filled divorce form was sent to me, which made me angry, but I signed it and submitted it immediately. As Tony has resigned from his job, I decided to return to work after my maternity leave. My colleagues sympathized with me and supported me, saying that it would be difficult, but I should hang in there. From then on, I worked hard to raise my daughter. I sometimes received help from my parents to raise her, and we made a lot of memories together. Before I knew it, 10 years had passed, and my daughter had grown up to be a wonderful girl. Amidst that, I received a call from an unknown number. I felt uneasy, wondering who it could be, but since it could be a work-related person, I decided to answer it. Then, to my surprise, I heard the voice of a certain person.
Andrea, it's me, Tony.
Huh? The person on the phone was my ex-husband. It had been 10 years since then. I couldn't help but wonder what he wanted from me.
How are you doing?
What do you mean? You calling me isn't going to end well.
How are your parents doing?
What's it to you? Why do you even care about my parents?
They're also Christina's parents. What's wrong with worrying about my wife's parents?
My ex-husband said that. I see. He married my sister. But I have a feeling he's up to something. I should be careful and probe for more information. My parents passed away. They both died from an illness.
Seriously? Then what about your family's home?
I inherited it. Then, my ex-husband made a surprising statement.
I'm going back to your home with my wife, so you need to leave.
I couldn't believe what I heard. What are you talking about? I said I inherited it.
I'm saying that Christina and I are going to live there, so you need to leave. Also, why are you the one who inherited the home? Doesn't Christina have the right to inherit it too?
I hope you're joking. After betraying our family like that, how could she possibly have the right to inherit anything?
Don't be ridiculous. I won't accept that. We just had a kid recently, so we are going to turn her family's home into our home.
I decided to set the record straight for Tony, who was still living in a fantasy world. Our family's home will never be in your hands.
What do you mean?
Like I've been saying, I inherited it. And then, I heard a woman's voice, probably my younger sister's. Hey sis, I won't allow you to inherit the house without my permission. We need to talk about the inheritance too. I didn't really want to deal with them anymore. But then, I came up with an idea. I guess we have to talk about it then. I told them to meet me at the coffee shop I specified. And there, I met my ex-husband and sister for the first time in 10 years. Both of them looked shabby, as if they were struggling to make a living. Christina and Tony asked only about the inheritance and the inheritance of the house. I was amazed that they didn't seem to feel sad that our parents had passed away. Actually, the story about our parents' death was a lie. They are living in a different house now. They had sold the old family home so that Christina couldn't return. But I didn't mention that fact, and I just nodded along with their talk. Christina said, "We'll leave it to you to divide the inheritance then." And they left the coffee shop. That was the beginning of my plan. An hour later, I received a call from a friend who had helped me with my plan. I had asked my friend to tell my sister and ex-husband to find out their current address. Once I got the address, I reported it to both sets of parents. Soon after, both sets of parents and I rushed to my sister's house. "Why are you here?" They were quite shocked by our sudden visit. Both sets of parents demanded reimbursement for the money they had paid in advance for consolation money and child support.
"We don't have any money to pay you back. We've been working part-time jobs and barely making ends meet."
They said that, but our parents didn't forgive them.
If that's the case, then you will have to consult with the police or a lawyer and figure out what to do.
The word police and lawyer made my sister's and Tony's face turn pale. That's going to be a problem. If it's okay to pay little by little, we'll pay. So please forgive us. They pleaded while crying. My parents and in-law reluctantly agreed to the condition and told the two that if the payment was delayed, they would immediately take legal action. Christina and Tony fell to the ground with a defeated expression. Did they seriously think they could be forgiven after 10 years? They were really living in a fantasy world. It's a shame that the child has to be raised by such a couple. I can only pray that the child learns from their parents' mistakes. Meanwhile, I live happily with my lovely daughter and my parents. My daughter studies hard and happily tells me about her good grades at school. I plan to work hard so that she can continue to smile in the future. My sister and ex-husband were both lazy, so perhaps that's why they were attracted to each other. I was angry when they eloped and ran away, but I felt satisfied when they were finally found and couldn't run away anymore. Andrea was probably glad to have cut ties with such terrible people. I hope she and her daughter can continue to live happily with their parents. Thank you for watching until the end. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.